until I got to daycare that
Wow.
a little bit
around
around.
We're live. We are live. That's all right. I didn't show up in green for St. Patrick's Day.
I'll say one
Go.
thing in debriefing on that, I have concern with how he responded to the district questions, and I've been researching or looking at the cited literature that the Vermont Superintendents Association provided. I did find a very useful one out of all of them. It's from 2024. Connecticut did it, and they did a survey of all the research. And I will say what I'm seeing in this, it validates many states have found that 6,000-ish is the ideal target. They did find Nebraska found 8,000, Texas found 47,000. So there is a spread. And actually Vermont is called out, and not really in a positive way. I just wanted to read this. This is in this very comprehensive 40-page report. Thank you for delivering it. And on page 20. But it says, Baker and Geller noted that there's a positive correlation between school size and the number of advanced placement classes offered, and argue that educational program breadth and depth may be compromised in Vermont's very small high schools, as data appears similar for athletic opportunities. Point is, I just thought that would be worth referencing. I didn't like his, I'm sorry, sir. I didn't like his answer on 15,000 being where he felt was good. I think we need to really peel that apart and go back through some of this data, because I think district size is going to be critical to this discussion.
Yeah, that's what Senate education.
It does a good job of summarizing
We do it,
a lot of literature.
Yeah, thank you, Senator. They are doing that, and it might be helpful as they start to hone in to do a group question and answer, so that they are working. I did have lunch with Senator Bongartz today. They are not going to get to S39. It's written on my hand, so I wouldn't forget. I already managed to get that. I've never done that before, but they are not going to get to it. So we will get that released to us. And we are scheduling, I think, next Wednesday, the treasurer's office to talk to us about. We can't get them. Oh, we can't get them? No. We will get somebody eventually when we can get them to talk to us about the bonds and bond markets and where we are and where the what's the difference with the municipal bond bank and what kind of limits are in there and what kind of interest rates. And then I think in order to get the schools, and I'm not sure if I think it's the districts now, we did hear, and I'm not sure from whom yesterday, that a school district is a municipality. So they do have bonding capacity, and I'm assuming going forward, they're going to own anything. I think we've already heard that we will have some messes to straighten out if and when we start divesting ourselves of schools. But we'll get some briefing on the lay of the land there.
I recommend, if we can't get the treasurer on Wednesday, which it seems as though we can't, Michael Gahn at the bond bank is always super excited to testify and speak about. He might, and I.
G-A-U-G-H.
Oh, his name is
A-N.
G-A-U-G-H. I think you're right, exactly, Michael Gahn. It'd be interesting to hear on this. And can I just bring up a point that I had about one of the takeaway from this presentation, which I found fascinating, but I also didn't like the answer that was given around the AOE's capacity to make this happen. I have deep anxiety about the fact that, for example, 7 Days just published that, there are 63 independent schools that have missed their renewal dates because the agency is behind on its part of the process. We've got schools that are being sued for bullying, hazing, and harassment because no one from the AOE has been able to go in and help the school deal with these really critical issues. So I do have a lot of anxiety around that, because to Representative Collins' point, this is a massive, massive.
It is a massive change, and we're not going to do it 5 years. Might be realistic, but
But not without a lot of resources.
Not that, that's, yes, we
Which
are going to need, and this committee will probably have to find the
But
resources.
it offsets the savings.
It will, I think to say that we are going to save $180 million next year and that property taxes are going down is probably extremely optimistic. I think we are going to probably need to find money. We are going to need to build some schools or some additions. Because if we don't have that and school additions don't get built overnight, we will have to go back to the infamous trailers.
They're expensive.
Remember those days? Yes. That we have a long way to go, and I think they may be setting a real goal. I think that that kids, and if I mean, even Montpelier is a larger school district, but I think even with Roxbury there, I think they have 100 fewer kids than they did when my kids went there. But the costs haven't gone down. And I am concerned when they tell me that our kids are not going on to any kind of training, that we have one of the lowest continuation rates. And that nationally, all kinds of kids need to take remedial work when they get out. So we're spending all this money and you're coming out without the classes you need to get into college if you choose to go there. So we have a long way to go.
To your point, Senator Grulich, even if this did end up not saving any money, if we spent out all of our savings through new infrastructure targeted to communities that need it with greater consistency and depth of offerings. I do want to lower our property tax bill and I do want to reduce our spending, but even in that scenario you described, I feel like we'd still be in a better state than where we are right now.
I think we get better, our kids would get better education.
Awesome.
I hope so.
And it sounds like the teachers would have a better working environment. I mean, I've read the report and I'm saying, I'm looking at the support staff the teachers are supposed to get. And I think most of the teachers in this state would give their right arm the kind of supports that are built into these national models. All the curriculum and
That's interesting though, because I keep hearing that we have more IAs or, than.
oh, no, you have aides. I'm talking about professional training, curriculum and lesson plan development, help, continuing education, not the aides. I think he's saying we're doing special ed because we aren't providing our teachers with the training and support to do things. And so we have
Tier 2.
like the highest special ed referrals in the country. Were very high. We may have gone up or down one or two, but we have a very high special ed. I don't think our kids are dumber than the rest of the.
Well, one thing that I remember some time ago, I was looking at the issue of special ed regarding what was being spent. And the thing that struck me was that there seemed to be vast differences from school districts to school districts as to how much education, special ed there is, even in adjacent districts that seem to have a lot of common demographics. And among the allegations, I was not able to pursue it in sufficient detail, was that in some cases the system was being gained, and I use that word broadly as to whether intentionally or not, but being manipulated, and that there was sort of the ability to do that depending upon the desires of the management of the districts. And that concerned me when I put it in the back of my mind as something that ought to be looked at some point. If you take a look at special ed on a district by district basis and then look for the anomalies And again, as I recall, when I looked at it last, and that's several years ago, there were significant anomalies. There were some districts that had tons and the district next door had very few. And it just begged the question, why?
And again, if you have small districts, you have an individual, one individual is making decisions, or 3 or 4 workers on your board. But probably the principal, the superintendent is making that decision.
Well, there was also just a question in the back of my conspiratorial mind as to whether are there financial incentives that might suggest in some cases to add special ed because the resources that would generate, and could that be some of the reasons why?
I've heard that suggestion before. I have no
It
idea.
doesn't generate any money unless the child goes into extraordinary.
Right. Especially with block grant, it doesn't,
Census block grant.
yeah.
That's not, it's specific,
Yeah, we have
it's a
started.
rifle specifically aimed at that particular.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that was put on.
Right there.
That's all.
3 and 4.
I think, yeah,
Which is
Yeah.
causing problems,
I
by the
think
way.
if you went around the state, you would find. I mean, some districts have started to implement Act 173 before it was even Act 173. That's what a lot of the modeling was. The DMG report, if anybody remembers that.
Yeah.
But I think if you went around the state, you would find districts that you'd wonder if there's even been an attempt at this point to implement.
And again, I share, I think everyone's concerned about the capacity at AOE. I think they're putting everything they have into this program.
Yeah.
I think they're quite, my just impression is there's like 5 people in a big building. Cause that's all I ever hear from, but
They're up at National Life. Let's go take a
They
tour.
have the.
whenever I'm up there, I mean, that's where the commission meets and it's empty.
Yeah.
From home or-
Yeah, I think a lot of them do, but
Can they still work from home?
you can balance, yes, you can balance budgets on vacancy savings. Not that it's ever been done. And we don't know what that actual capacity is.
I think there's very little because I think,
There
I mean, the vast majority of their employees are on federal grants.
is.
And we can't just say, hey, we want you guys to go out in the field and implement Act 173 because it's federal grants and they don't allow it.
Well, and those federal grants
Could
may
go
not
away.
be around for much longer.
That's right, they may not even be around.
That's right.
So Madam Chair, if I
Yeah.
might, yeah, I mean, so AOE is the most heavily federally funded department that we have. So they are very, very, very vulnerable right now.
They are.
And so I think we also have to take that into consideration when we're thinking about this transition, because it will take a ton of AOE's time and resources. And they are behind on some of the most basic things right now. But what I wanted to say, a couple things about, it would be great to get testimony on this. In particular, this is that Connecticut school finance project, and this is about district and school consolidation. I think
And that was
might be-
pointed out to us
Yeah.
by the
Senator Chitty.
No, Senator Shitten,
Yes.
from the Vermont Superintendents Association.
okay, I think
And I think
Connecticut also got held up to us as somebody who done recent
Yes.
changes by the
the
highest tribe.
yes, the Rebecca Sevilla.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it might be helpful to hear from him.
Yeah.
Because I agree that his answer was totally insufficient about this district size. I also think it would be helpful. I think that Charlotte is trying to, this was Thomas's,
This is.
was trying to get Tammy Colby in, because she's.
Have Tammy? No, that's because week after week she's booked.
She was in, she's been in this Ways and Means twice. She was there today, and actually, that's why I was late to the floor, because I was there listening to her testimony, which was really, really good. And she spent half of it on special education and half of it on answering further questions about the calculations of weights and the considerations of a base amount for the funding formula.
Okay.
And she can explain it much better than the consultants that the AOE has done. So I think that it would be valuable to hear from her
Okay.
if we can get her, or if people want to listen to her testimony in education or in Ways and Means. It was
This morning.
this morning and she was there earlier. So this was a follow-up. She basically came back to answer
Maybe we
questions.
can-
And I was like chomping at the
Sure.
bit. I wanted to ask her
Can we
questions, but
play
I,
that testimony?
Yeah, we
Well,
can.
maybe
video,
we'll
shouldn't
play
we?
that testimony.
yeah, I would do both of her testimonies.
Someday.
But
That-
the other thing I would just wanted to mention, because Senator Mattos and I were, and Senator Kulik, this side of the table, we were,
The one that could see the screen?
yeah, the budget that he was presenting was one side of the budget. He basically said, this is the revenue I'm gonna get. I'm
Yeah.
gonna plop my expenses into this into this budget. And my questions about, I don't see any M&O, I don't see any special ed, I don't, he was assuming that the base would cover all of those things without actually costing out what those things cost. And so that really, it was a revenue budget, not a cost and revenue budget. And that I think is really a misrepresentation of how a budget is developed. Because anybody can back into it, but he just backed into it based on the numbers he was given rather than actually saying this is how much it costs to do things.
Someone from the school, there's a school business managers group.
As well.
Could we get someone to come in and talk to us about how they would put together a budget? There's also, I know I heard the governor talk about $30 million he was putting into the Department of Ed. I've been told that was for consultants, but we might want to talk about the hall once they get rid of the BAA about, is that one-time money he's putting in there for consultants, or is he in fact beefing up?
Right, they need full-time permanent positions or at least 10-year
Last I
positions.
heard, Brad
do
James
this.
was back part-time crunching numbers. And
Yeah.
he was their number cruncher.
But one of the things I remember from years ago, this is 20 years ago, as State Auditor, and I had heard the same thing still exists today. The concern that about how accounting is done in the districts, that there's a common chart of accounts that are used by district budgets, but every district uses it slightly differently. And what it says in one, it's included in one district is not included in another. So they're not really apples and oranges. So I think there may be some fundamental problems in how costs are being calculated in the first place.
They tried to fix that. They do
Yeah.
have a uniform.
Spend a lot of
They
money.
do have it at
Well, they've had a
AOE,
uniform chart of accounts for 25 years. They just use it differently.
but they're collecting it now.
I think they are
And
trying to.
yeah, they are trying to get that. They are. And if you'd like to go to sleep someday, we had the gentleman in. And I did an evening session. But they are making progress on that. But again, it's hard. If you had 5, 10, choose your number, but a lot fewer districts, it would be a lot easier to get accounting done. And then there's issues with the property tax capacity, or, aligning with the students, which doesn't work in smaller districts. So we're gonna have
Grand
the
list.
Okay,
amount of
good.
tax capacity that's
Yeah,
available
yeah,
for
yeah.
students. Yeah, all of which push towards larger.
As you see your email, Madam Chair, I just sent it to the whole committee. The other big question I would like answered for anybody that's tuning in on YouTube right now is there an optimal district size for more rural areas versus urban? Because as much as I don't want an urban-rural divide, I don't think it's fair to have a model that is the same for everybody. Cookie cutter approaches rarely work, and I just wonder if larger geographic areas covered with pupils need a different district model approach.
Yep.
But I'm looking to my more rural friends.
Now, are you more worried about the size of the district or the size of the school?
It's almost both. I mean,
Because I feel like if your district's big, but the size of your school is adequate for your area, it's not as much of a concern.
It's not a concern to me, but I'd certainly be willing to hear what somebody else like me than I do about it.
I was told by the ed people that Chittenden County would be divided.
I think that's the bigger question. 37.
We're the outliers in this thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, geographically, it's,
But that doesn't mean we won't get consolidated. The city of Winooski should not be a separate school district. I've said that before. It's too small. And so we
Yeah.
need to rethink all of our school districts, not just the rural countrysides, but
oh, yeah.
If we get into that conversation, one thing I've thought about for this, your mega district is maybe on some level that makes sense. But can a school district, are there models out there where they regionalize it? Where you get like all of the efficiencies, but you still,
Well, BOCES, that's kind of what BOCES was gonna do.
maybe I need to learn more about BOCES.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
that was the
that's
idea.
purchase,
Yeah.
I know where your mind
Well,
is.
it's also for the sharing of that,
Yeah.
and it's
Some
all
districts-
sharing staff,
Is it
I mean, in transportation, in other cities, and special education.
Is it going in? Who's doing
It already exists in Wyndham or Windsor County, they already do it, they have their own BOCES already.
Okay,
So
Districts
that's here,
can
it's
tell.
like,
Yes.
well,
Or
maybe
they-
you can build on that.
Yeah.
exactly.
All right.
Hold on, those, yeah.
You guys are great.
Are we ready to go? Are we ready to go?
Are we
Celebration?
ready to go? Okay, then